Welcome to the new podcast, In the Garden with Susan. I'm your host, Susan Ladner. I will aim to bring you top quality information on how to save open pollinated seeds, grow a garden, and preserve what you grow. Every Wednesday, I'll be sharing practical tips and techniques to help you on your journey to food security. Join me as I preserve the abundance of produce that my garden provides. Learn new ways of putting food away for the winter and some old ways that are from another century. You can find this podcast on Shopify and at my website. Come on, let's go wander down to the garden and awaken the dreams, history, and love that is held inside every seed. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of In the Garden with Susan. And today we're going to finish up our little peek into the perennial vegetables. And so I'm pretty sure I covered them all. There may be a few that I missed, and then there's a few that are sort of, it's like they're sitting on the edge of perennial. And a few sites that I looked at, some people called them perennial spinach. However, they weren't really. Like, it was like a perpetual spinach, and it'll grow for a year, and then it's maybe a year and a half you have vegetables, but then it will go to seed. And so I didn't include that, although I almost did. I do have some perpetual spinach growing out in the garden, and it is lovely. However, it's not really a perennial, as I would term it. And so we're going to start and take a look at hostas. And it's very interesting because I've never really seen I've never seen anything before about edible hostas. And then just like in the past 2 weeks, I've had videos appearing, and maybe it's because, the big brother watching knows what I'm thinking. Or maybe even saw that I sort of was looking it up, and suddenly it's like hostas. It's all over my social media. I'm seeing videos. Like, it's kind of funny how much it's there, and I'm looking at it now. And it's very interesting because a lot of people, I think, even have these growing already in their ornamental gardens or their flower beds. I have never, there were some hostas growing on the farm when I lived there that were planted before, but I've never really grown hostas. And so they're a popular ornamental plant, and they have a really lush foliage. And the really great thing about hostas is that they have shade tolerance. So if you've got a part of your garden that gets no sun, and there's really not a lot you can grow there, like, put in a bunch of hostas, and there's some food security for you in that area that might not be producing normally. And so because of this is a great staple to have in your garden. And they have there's lots of edible parts, and primarily the young shoots and leaves. And I saw this one video, the man went out and there were all these shoots just coming up, and he just snapped them all off, and he went and he fried them up, and like, wow. So I think this is something really important that we should sort of look at putting in our gardens, just to get them multiplying. And so the young shoots are called hostans, and they appear in the spring, and they are the most commonly eaten part. And they resemble rolled up cigars, and they're often compared to asparagus in texture and flavor. And the leaves, although less commonly used than the shoots, can be also eaten, especially when they are young and tender. However, I watched one video, and the woman went out, and I mean, she said she was cutting the young leaves. However, they looked pretty big to me, and she fried them up and ate them. So there's food there. If you're really hungry and you need some greens and there's no other greens to eat, I mean, hey, there's some nutrition. And so the best time to harvest the hosta shoots and leaves is in the early spring, when they're just beginning to unfurl, or when they've like they're just getting ready or they haven't started unfurling yet. And at this stage, they are the most tender and mild in flavor. And so they have a mild, somewhat sweet taste, and they're very versatile in a range of dishes. So you can blanch and saute the young hosta shoots. They can be blanched and then sauteed with garlic and butter. Just like you can use them any way you would prepare asparagus or green beans. And you can stir fry them. So after blanching them, the leaves and shoots can be stir fried, and it's like sort of like an Asian inspired dish. The young tender leaves, once blanched, can be used in salads, and they can be sliced, and they pair very well with a vinaigrette or a creamy dressing. And the young leaves are a very good spinach substitute. And so the blanched hosta leaves can be used similarly to cooked spinach, and they can be incorporated into dishes such as quiches, omelets, and pasta. And so I think the commonality here is that if you're going to be eating the young leaves, you want to blanch them, even when you're putting them in salads. I didn't actually see in any of the videos anyone eating the hosta leaves just raw. And so you can also add them into soups and stews. And the larger leaves can be used as a green component in these soups and stews. And they contribute bulk and nutrition. And then also for steaming, both the shoots and young leaves can be lightly steamed and served with a drizzle of olive oil or a sprinkle of sea salt. Um, so yeah, and I guess I had a recipe here of just simply sauteed hostess shoots or hosta shoots, and you just take a handful of them and you put them in a frying pan. Um, First you clean them really well, like thoroughly trim off the ends and get all the soil out. Then you blanch them in boiling water for 1 to 2 minutes. Drain and rinse with cold water. You want to heat the oil or butter in a skillet over medium heat. Add the minced garlic or onion if you are using and saute until fragrant. And then add the blanched hosta shoots, salt, pepper, and saute them for 3 to 5 minutes until fully heated and slightly golden. And then you can serve warm as a side dish or incorporate this into other dishes. And so they're very low in calories, but they contain a variety of vitamins and minerals, and they have vitamin A, vitamin C, and iron, along with a fair amount of fiber. And so the best time to harvest them is in early spring when they're about 6 to 8 inches tall and before they unfurl. And this is when they're the most tender and flavorful. And it says you can cut. I saw both methods. I saw people cutting them at the base with a sharp knife or scissors, but I also saw a few people just snapping them off. They just grabbed it at the base and just snapped it. And you only want to harvest a few from each plant, and about a third of them. You don't want to take too much. And so something to think about if you're going out on a hosta hunt to get some of these, raiding your neighbor's garden or whatever, or even if you see them in a park, you do not want to harvest from anything that's been treated with pesticides or other chemicals, unless they've been labeled as their edible plants. So something to think about. And it's pretty advisable that you only consume ones that you've grown yourself or that have been grown specifically for eating. And anyone that has allergies, as with any new food, you only want to eat a little bit. You only want to introduce these into your diet gradually and monitor for any adverse reactions. And so When it comes to the edible hostas, the best varieties are often those with the most tender and flavorful shoots. And so generally all hostas are edible, but there's some that are noted specifically for their superior taste and texture. And so the best hostas for eating are the Hosta Royal Standard, and this variety is often recommended for its larger, tastier shoots, and it has a good flavor and is one of the most popular choices for culinary use. And then there's the Hosta Crossa Regal, and it is known for its upright form and bluish leaves, and it produces particularly tender shoots that are excellent for eating. And then there's the Hosta Siboldiana, and these tend to have large, thicker leaves and are noted for producing substantial and satisfying shoots. Now we have the Hosta Sum and Substance, and this is one of the largest Hosta varieties and is prized for both its decorative and impact and large, tasty shoots. Oh, sorry, it's decorative impact. I guess it's like you see it in the garden and you're like, whoa. And now we have the Hosta Fortune, sorry, I can't say this very well. Fortune Eye, Fortune Eye, and or Fortunii. And it is known for its tender shoots and subtly flavored leaves. There is the Hosta Montana, and this variety produces large, flavorful leaves. And the last one is the Hosta undulata, and this is noted for its waxy leaves and mild flavor. So if you're looking for any to eat, you'd really sort of want to go for those. And to grow, so I wanted to know about growing this from seed, because that's really how I like to get my plants a lot, like how can we grow these from seed and get seeds from somewhere? And so if they're grown from seed, they can exhibit significant variation from their parent plants. And so if you're planting the seeds from a particularly tasty or aesthetically pleasing hosta, the seedlings may not necessarily replicate these traits. And the seeds require a period of cold stratification to germinate. And so this means that they need to be exposed to cold temperatures for a few weeks to stimulate winter conditions. And this can be done by planting seeds outdoors in the fall or by storing the seeds in the refrigerator before sowing. And so the time for maturity is it takes several years to reach maturity and may not produce significant foliage or be harvestable for several seasons. And to grow hostas from seed, you sow them in a tray of moist seed starting mix and lightly cover them with soil. And after stratification, keep the soil slightly moist and in a cool shaded area, and germination can take several weeks. And so the seedlings require careful management, including protection from direct sunlight and regular watering. And they should be transplanted into individual pots once they are big enough to handle and eventually moved outdoors. And so due to the slow growth and variability when growing hosta from seeds, many gardeners prefer to propagate them from division. And dividing hostas is a faster and more reliable method to replicate the desired characteristics of a parent plant. And this involves simply splitting the root clump of an established hosta and replanting the divisions. And this can be done in early spring or fall and ensures that new plants will mirror the parent's traits. And so this is, something I I think that we would be better. It seems to be kind of, we gardeners have enough to do than babying some seeds that we don't even know what's going to come of them. And so when you get your hostas, you want to choose the right location before you plant them because they thrive in partial to full shade. And you want to avoid areas that have full sun, especially in hotter climates, as it can scorch the leaves. And you want the soil to be well drained and rich in organic matter. And they prefer slightly acidic to neutral soil, pH of 6.5 to 7.5. And you want to prepare the soil and amend it with plenty of organic matter such as compost or well rotted manure to ensure the soil, to enrich the soil and improve drainage. And if your soil is heavy clay, you want to consider raised beds or incorporating sand or organic matter to improve the water flow. And so of course, you're going to select, you're going to go out there and you're going to find the best hostas that are for eating. And the best time to plant is in early spring or fall, as the cooler temperatures will help the plant establish itself without stress. Excuse me. And to plant the hostas, according to their mature size, the smaller varieties can be spaced about 12 inches apart, the medium sizes about 24 inches apart, and the large types about 36 inches apart. And you want to plant the hostas so that the crown, where the stem meets the roots, is just above or slightly below the soil surface, and you want to avoid burying the crown too deeply. And after planting, you want to water the hostas thoroughly and continue to provide adequate water throughout the growing season, especially in the absence of rain, as hostas prefer to have consistently moist soil. And you want to apply a layer of mulch around them to retain moisture, suppress weeds, and regulate the soil temperature. And you want to feed them in the spring with a balanced, slow-release fertilizer to promote healthy growth. And you want to divide them every 3 to 5 years, or when the clumps become too dense, divide them in the early spring or fall to rejuvenate them and control their spread. And I'm not sure if you're eating, like if you're taking 1/3 off them every spring of the shoots, I'm not sure how much they will be, becoming so dense, but maybe I've never, I do not really know. And for the seasonal care, you want to remove dead foliage in the fall to prevent disease and tidy up the garden. And in the colder regions, like up here in Canada, you're going to want to add an additional mulch layer after the ground freezes, can help protect the plants from the freeze thaw cycle. And so that's all about those guys. I really need to find some of these. It's almost getting to that point where it's too late to plant them, but I'd really like to get some in. And now we're going to backtrack again into the alliums. And I thought we were done with the alliums, but I can't believe I forgot this one. And the only reason I remembered him is because I've been out in the garden and I've harvested some of this guy for my salads. I have about 9 or 10 of them growing out there, and I had transplanted them from my other garden because I didn't want them to cross-pollinate my one variety of green onions, and I couldn't believe they were there. I was like, what, how are these guys even alive? And so what they are. And so I started looking back through my seed packages, going, what, where did I get these and what are they? And they are an evergreen bunching onion. And the seed package said nothing about them being perennial. I really think they should. I know some of these seed companies maybe want to sell you, they want you to be a customer every year. However, I believe we should be really looking at how can we save our own seeds, and so we don't have to buy the seeds anymore, and we'll have them in our hands, because what happens if that supply goes down and we can't get the seeds from the store, or and we don't know, or if they get too expensive. So these guys, the evergreen bunching onion, and they are nice. Like they are so hardy, and they have been, and I should have remembered because I put them in a corner down in garden number 1. And I remember last year, I think they went to seed and I was just cutting them off. I really wasn't even thinking because I just thought that I never really gave these guys any love. I'm not sure why. They I've almost done everything I could to kill them. And suddenly this year I'm loving them. And they have a nice glorious place in the garden and they got moved, and I have been eating them, and they don't really like to be transplanted. Some of them weren't too happy, but they're all still alive, and some of them are really growing and giving me lots of green onions for my salads. And so this variety, it does not form bulbs, but instead it produces clusters of long, slender, white and green stalks. And it's cold hardy, like that's for sure. This guy had no protection. Well, all of them, they were just sitting there like not, and sometimes they didn't even water them. It, such neglect these poor plants have had. Um, and so they're very cold hardy, and they can harvested throughout the season by cutting the green tops, which will grow. And I have found like some of them I'm not cutting off of because they're struggling. They're not pleased with their move. But a couple of them have taken right off with the move. And I go out there, and when I'm harvesting the greens, they're regrowing and they're doing well, and they're going to seed. There's going to be some I will be offering these guys in the seed catalog, the evergreen bunching onion. And so, really, they prefer full sun and well drained soil, and they can be planted in the early spring or fall. And they like regular watering, and occasionally feeding will help maintain healthy growth. And I did neither to these guys, they've never even been fed. And so, they are ideal for use in salads or garnishes and in cooking where a mild onion flavor is desired. And right now, the bees and the insects are out there. They just love these guys. And so, some tips for growing. Um, they benefit from rich, well draining soil, and so you want to incorporate a lot of organic matter before planting, and provide adequate spacing between the plants to allow for proper air circulation and growth. And you want to keep the soil moist but not waterlogged, as overwatering can lead to bulb rot. And you want to monitor them for common pests like onion flies and thrips. And so you want to practice crop rotation with onions that can help prevent soil-borne diseases. But I mean, these are an onion relative, but they're just sitting there, like they're just there. And so another another perennial vegetable is the globe artichoke. And I grew these one year in Ontario. They get quite big. They're very beautiful. They're a very unique plant, and they are more challenging to grow in a zone 5, because if you do give those guys some winter protection, they can be regrown as a perennial. And in my garden in Ontario, they died. I was not able to get them through the winter. And so then we also have um, the Turkish Rocket, and it is appreciated for its early spring buds and edible leaves, which can be used in salads or cooked. And it has a spicy, nutty flavor, and it's very resilient. And so I just missed that guy. That guy should have been put in with that's basically, I believe, a perennial arugula. Okay, and now we're going to talk about it's a little bit different. These are a little bit more going into diversity here. They are perennial, um, and these can go through zone 5. And so they're the burdock. and some people might think these are a weed. They probably are the bane of some people's existence if they have animals or horses that get them stuck in their manes or anything, or you get them stuck all over you. But the burdock is known for its edible roots, and they have a sweet, earthy flavor, and they're commonly used in Japanese culture or Japanese cuisine. Sorry. And so it's a robust biennial plant which is known for its edible roots, leaves, and young stalks. And it's often grown as a perennial vegetable in various cuisines across the world, particularly in Japan where it's known as gobo. And they these guys are from the family that is related to daisies and sunflowers. And in the first year, it will grow a rosette of leaves, sending up a tall flower stalk in its second year, which can reach up to 6 feet or more in height. And the leaves are large, coarse, and generally heart-shaped. And the roots are long, woody, and they can grow quite deep. And this is the most commonly consumed part of the plant. And burdock prefers deep, well-drained loam or sandy soil, as compact soil can impede root growth. It thrives in full sun, but it can tolerate partial shade. And the burdock seeds are sown in late spring or early summer. And since the roots can become very long, you want to ensure that the soil is deep and free of stones to facilitate growth. And regular watering is necessary, especially in dry conditions, to promote the growth of tender roots. And so the roots are the most primarily edible part. They can be peeled, sliced, and cooked. And the roots have a mild, sweet, and earthy flavor. And they are used in soups, stir fries, and traditional Japanese dishes. And you can also eat the stalks and the leaves. And the young stalks and leaves the stalks need to be peeled and can be eaten like celery, while the young leaves can be cooked like spinach. And so there's something, if you've got some burdock growing around and um, you want to have a little snack, there you go. You can add that to your dishes. And so it's highly nutritious, and it's rich in fiber, potassium, and other minerals, and it also contains powerful antioxidants. And the roots are best harvested in the late fall of their first year or the early spring of the second year before the plant flowers. And the roots will become woody and less palatable once the plant matures and flowers. And so you want to harvest the stalks and leaves in the plant's first year or early in the second year for best flavor and texture. And traditionally, burdock is considered a blood purifier, and it's used in various herbal remedies to support liver function, aid detoxification, and improve skin health. And some people believe that it's invasive, and it is invasive. I think you'll see burdock everywhere. And it's known for its burr-like seed heads, which can spread widely and grow where they are not intended. So its ability to self-seed prolifically makes it potentially invasive in some regions. And it can suffer from issues of powdery mildew or root rot in overly moist conditions. And so that also, I remember when I lived in Ontario, the co-op sometimes got the burdock root in, and I was juicing it. I was putting it through the juicer. And so, I mean, I can't say it was particularly a delightful juice, but we drank it, and probably healthier for it. And so now I want to talk about watercress. And I know this is probably out of reach for some of us to grow. I can't even grow it here, but it is a perennial, so I'm going to talk about it. And it's a water-loving plant, and it requires a moist environment, and it has peppery leaves that are excellent in salads and soups. And so watercress is highly nutritious, and it grows naturally in spring water and slow-moving streams, and can be cultivated in moist, semi-aquatic environments. And it comes from the same family as mustard greens, cabbage, and kale, and it is a perennial plant. And the leaves are small, rounded, and have a pungent, peppery taste with hollow stems, and these help the plant float in water environments. And its growth cycle, as a true perennial, watercress can grow year-round in temperate climates, provided it has consistent access to water, and it continuously produces new shoots from the root system. And in regions that have harsh winters, watercress may die back to the roots, but will typically resprout in the spring if the roots don't freeze. And so watercress needs a consistent supply of fresh flowing water, and can be grown in water gardens, ponds, or a container with a water reservoir. And the ideal water temperature is between 50 degrees, or well, I'll say Celsius because we're in Canada, 10 degrees Celsius to 15.5 degrees Celsius. And you want to plant it in loamy, nutrient-rich soil with a neutral to slightly alkaline pH, and watercress can be started from seeds or cuttings, and seeds should be sown just below the surface of the soil in a wet environment, and cuttings can simply be placed in water and they will quickly root. And so for like use in, culinary uses, the fresh watercress leaves are most commonly used in salads, and it can be used in soups. I guess it's famous to be used in creamy soups or as a garnish on soups. And it can be added into sandwiches and wraps, or in juices or smoothies. And watercress is rich in vitamins A, C, and K, and it provides antioxidants such as beta carotene and lutein. I'm probably saying that wrong. And it's also a good source of calcium and iron. And so you can harvest watercress by cutting the shoots just above the water level and allowing them to grow. And for the best flavor and texture, you want to regularly harvest the young, tender leaves. And it's been known to improve digestion, support lung health, and it has detoxifying effects, and due to its high nutrient content, it supports overall health. And so the challenges with growing this is that you need clean water, as polluted or stagnant water can lead to poor plant health and potential health risks if consumed. And watercress is susceptible to pests like flea beetles and diseases such as leaf spot, and regular monitoring and maintaining clean growing conditions can help manage these issues. And so now this one, I actually was just planting these guys in my garden the other day. And this is marshmallow. And I know it's an herb, but I think that, just because of how edible it is, I think this is an important one. And you know what? Maybe one day, well, because I live off grid and I think about these things, and I used to think about it on the farm, because I use a compost toilet. If you run out of toilet paper, or maybe one day you can't afford toilet paper, the marshmallow leaves can be used as toilet paper. So I'm just throwing that out there. I have tried it, in Ontario, and it does work, and it was actually nice. The leaves are nice, right? So it's not a bad experience. And just, just in case, like, everyone's now gonna remember marshmallow. You should grow some marshmallow if toilet paper gets too expensive. So the roots of this plant are edible, and they were originally used to make marshmallow treats, and the leaves can be eaten in salads or as a cooked green. And so it's a perennial herb, and it's known for its culinary and medicinal properties. And so it's related to the hibiscus and the okra, and it is traditionally valued for its I'm gonna butcher this word. It has mucus properties of its roots. And marshmallow has a history of use in both food and herbal remedies. And it typically grows to about 3 or 4 feet in height and has a spread of 2 to 3 feet, and it forms a rosette of leaves in the first year and will produce tall spikes of flowers in subsequent years. And the leaves are velvety and heart-shaped with a toothed margin, and it produces soft pink flowers in the late summer, which are not only beautiful but also attract pollinators like bees and butterflies. And the roots are thick, long, and tapering, white on the inside and covered with a brown skin. And these are the most valued part of the plant. And so, and I believe, like, you can, well, what I've done with them, I've harvested the roots, so you can even buy them dried, and you can soak them in some cold water. You don't want to boil them. Just put some of the dried roots in a cup, or I put them in a jar with a lid, and you put some cold water in there, and you shake it up and let it do its thing. And then it's really good if someone has a throat, they've got a cold and their throat hurts it and they can't swallow very well. I've always used that. Then you can just swallow better. And so marshmallow, it's very hardy, and it can tolerate cold temperatures, making it suitable for grow zones 3 through 9. And as a perennial, it will return each year from the same roots, with the root system becoming more robust over time, and the plants can live for several years under optimal conditions. And it prefers moist, well-drained soil with a good supply of organic matter, and it thrives in soil with a neutral to slightly acidic pH. It grows best in full sun to partial shade. It does need plenty of moisture and will do well in a garden spot that tends to stay damp but not waterlogged. And the seeds can be sown directly outdoors in spring or started indoors before the last frost, and they can be propagated by root cuttings in autumn or spring. And so for eating, the roots were traditionally used to make marshmallows, and this is where the name derived from this plant. And the roots can be boiled, fried, or baked, and have a slightly sweet taste. And the leaves and flowers can be used in salads and cooked fresh as a leafy vegetable, and the flowers can be added to salads or as an edible garnish. And so the marshmallow, it has a type of dietary fiber, and it's very soothing to the digestive tract, and it also contains moderate amounts of vitamins and minerals, particularly B vitamins and iron. And it's excellent in soothing the digestive system, and it's a traditional remedy for ulcers and indigestion. And it has been used in herbal medicine to treat sore throats, coughs, and other respiratory issues. And it's also used in treating skin irritations and inflammations. And the roots are typically harvested in the late autumn of the second year or later, and older and the older roots are also, they're richer in the mucilage. And leaves and flowers can be harvested throughout the growing season as needed. And so some of the challenges of growing this is that you need to keep the soil consistently moist. And so this can be a challenge, especially in drier regions. And so if you're thinking about planting it, you might want to plant it close to your water source. And snugs, slugs and snails they're attracted to this plant. And it can also be susceptible to rust and fungal diseases in humid conditions. And I'm sorry, I think somebody is here. I'm going to try and ignore them. I'll continue. Um, and so marshmallow is a useful and attractive addition to the garden, and it's particularly in areas where the soil retains moisture. And its ability to return year after year with minimal maintenance makes it a valuable plant for both culinary and medicinal purposes. So that's pretty much it. And then also something I wanted to talk about with the marshmallow, it's good to keep it going. Like it's not really something you just plant. Like it's good to grow several plants because you're going to be wanting to be harvesting the roots. But then also continuing every year. Like it's something you want to put in a few plants every year. And then there is a plant that it's called mashua, and it's a fascinating and lesser known perennial vegetable, and it originates from the Andean mountains. And so it's closely related to the garden nasturtiums. And I haven't really been looking at it, but I'd like to find this. And it's noted for its edible tubers, leaves, and flowers. And so the mashua is a climbing or trailing vine, and it can grow several meters in length, making it suitable for trellises or ground cover. And the leaves are circular and shield shaped, and they're similar to those of common nasturtiums, but typically larger. And so the flowers of the mashua, and I hope I'm saying that wrong or saying that right. I'm sorry, I'm very distracted because somebody's here and they're outside and I think they want to talk to me. But the flowers of the mashua produce vibrant orange and or red trumpet-shaped flowers in the fall, which are not only attractive, but they're also edible. And the tubers are the most significant part of the plant, and they are usually elongated and knobby and can vary in color from red to yellow to even purple. And so these tubers have a sharp, peppery flavor, somewhat akin to radishes, and can be eaten raw or cooked. And they are typically boiled, baked, or roasted and can be used in dishes similar to potatoes or carrots. And the leaves and flowers can be eaten raw in salads where they add a peppery zest similar to watercress or garden nasturtiums, and the flowers especially make a colorful garnish. And so mashua is rich in carbohydrates, dietary fiber. It contains vitamins such as vitamin C and B and minerals like iron and calcium. And I apologize. I must go. I hope everybody's having a wonderful week. I will leave the rest of the information for Mashua in the show notes below, and I will see you in the garden. Thank you for joining me for this episode of In the Garden with Susan. I hope you enjoyed the series as we looked at perennial vegetables and how to grow more food security in your garden that will come back year after year. I may have missed a few vegetables. I'm not sure. I tried my best, but if I do find any more, I'm sure to let you know. I look forward to talking to you next week when we're going to start looking at some edible flowers. You can find this podcast and others at Spotify, Radio Public, Podchaser. It's on my Rumble channel. It's on my YouTube channel. And as always, it's at my website at www.gardenfairybotanicals.ca. I hope you have a wonderful week planting and getting everything into the ground. And I will see you in the garden.